Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and devoted homemaker. Join me on this journey as we explore the beauty of slow and simple living, where life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. I'll take you through my experiences of slowing down, tending to our allotment plot, finding joy in the little things and making the most of our small home. Together we'll learn to live in harmony with the ever-changing seasons, discovering the magic that lies in embracing the present moment. So let's embark on this enriching adventure towards a more intentional and fulfilling life. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, and if you're new here, thank you so much for deciding to tune in. I am the founder, I guess, of the Slow Living Collective, and you can check me out basically on the Slow Living Collective on any platform that you look for. I always leave all of the links and everything down in the description of the episode, so you can check out anything I mention there. But today's episode is going to be about homemaking and about the value of homemaking and how we place value on our homemaking. Calling all sourdough enthusiasts, if you've been wondering what to do with all of that precious sourdough discard, I have some exciting news for you. Say hello to my free recipe guide, The Sourdough Discard Kitchen, your key to turning that discard into something truly amazing. Unleash new flavours and textures in your cooking and baking and explore a world of recipes and ideas with your sourdough discard. It is time to transform your sourdough routine. Visit theslowlivingcollective.com/sourdough to download your free guide. This is something I'm really passionate about, and I'm going to take you back to 2018 for a start. So 2018 was the year that I got pregnant with my daughter. She was my firstborn, and I got pregnant with her, and she was born in early 2019. And as I was prepping to finish up work, I started thinking about what my role would be when we had children. And I say children, but the actual plan was one child. And that's not to say my son was, accidental. It was just that we changed our mind a bit further down the line. But as I was finishing up my work, I was a work from home freelancer. I was very lucky in that I was able to work wherever, whenever, and I created my business doing that. I worked as a personal brand strategist, social media manager, copywriter, all of those good things. And so, I was a freelancer. And so when it came to winding down for my business, I was just me. And so my business was going, I guess, on hiatus for that time. And it worked out okay. I had a lot of work to do ahead of my maternity leave. I was planning on taking the full maternity leave, and in the UK, that is up to 1 year. And you get 9 months of that paid. As a freelancer, I was entitled to maternity allowance, which is basically the same as statutory maternity pay, but you just apply for it in a different way. And when I was powering down and getting ready to go on maternity leave, I was thinking about what life might look like on the other side, because I really didn't know whether I would return to work. And that's something that I've discussed about before, about how my husband and I always had this idea of where we were headed. And we worked really hard to create the life that we wanted for ourselves. And by that, I mean the way we just set things up and the way we just... I'm trying to think of the words, because I'm like, how much do I share kind of thing. But I guess in terms of how we were going to set up our finances going forward, we've always had shared finances, pretty much from just before we were married. And so the goal has always been that my income would be a bonus. And so we always set up our life based on one income only. And this was a little piece of advice that my mum gave me when I was sort of growing up, I guess, that if possible, and obviously the world changes, things look very different, it's not always possible for everyone. If possible, try and base your outgoings and your living expenses on just one income. The the biggest income, I guess. And anything else is a bonus. And that's the way my parents did things, and that's the way we set things up as well, that we would always just base our outgoings and our affordability on everything on just that one income. And now, like I said, I know that's not always possible, but that's just the way we were able to set things up. So I was thinking ahead, thinking how was I going to create this, I guess, this life the other side of maternity leave. What was it going to look like for me, and how was I going to do all of the things, be a mother and run my own business. And because I did it by myself, it was very flexible to ebb and flow. But alongside that, when I wound everything down for maternity leave, I had to basically stop my business because there was no one else that could take over the role from me, because that's not the way I worked as a freelancer. And so to me, winding down for maternity leave was almost a full stop, and I didn't really know what life would look like on the other side. In some ways, there was no pressure at all on whether I would return to work, and we were just going to see how it went. So my daughter was born early 2019. I decided to take a little bit longer because it didn't really matter. I decided to take a little bit longer of maternity leave, and I guess in early 2020 I started to think about whether I wanted to go back to work or not. And it was just going to be on like a very ad hoc, low-key, small amount of hours basis. And I was predominantly going to be home with our daughter. I mean, I was to be home anyway because that's where I work. But my primary role was going to be her caregiver. And so it was probably towards the end of February 2020 that I thought, okay, maybe I will pick up some bits, see what's about, see what's out there. Anybody who has already twigged the timeline knows that after February came March 2020, and the world literally shut down. So I came off maternity leave, the world shut down, and I was like, oh my goodness. And that had some financial impacts for us as a family in terms of my husband's job, and he came home and worked full time from home and has done ever since. And it's definitely helpful in terms of that slow and simple life that we live, because there's no rushing in our home, and it's quite nice. But other than that, he had, there were some financial implications on his salary. And so suddenly it was like, well, I'm going to really have to do something. And so I just literally dove headfirst into doing that. And it wasn't full-time, it wasn't even part-time. It was very, very, very small amount of hours, bringing in a small amount of income, but it really did help us through a really tricky time. And then it was just a couple of months later that I said to my husband, I think I want to have another baby. Totally shocked him right out the blue. We'd always said that we only wanted one child, and that's truly what I believed. But as 2020 was sort of moving on, I just felt like our family wasn't complete. And it's really funny because now my son is here. He was born in May 2021. So again, I had to sort of wind down. I did this sort of short period of work between, I guess, not even about a year. And then I was off on maternity leave again. And same thing, just wound things down a bit early, actually. I don't think it wasn't even a year. But yeah, wound things down. And I knew when I did it the second time that I wasn't going to return to work. I knew that everything I had done with my business since the age of 21, and I had my son when I was 36, everything that I had done, I was finished with. And to be honest, I was in that state of mind when I wound things down for my maternity leave with my daughter. But this time I knew that I wasn't going to return to work in that capacity and doing those things. And so it was really freeing to finish up maternity leave, knowing that I was done with it. I didn't have to force it anymore, because I think without the pandemic, I think I wouldn't have returned to work. It was just more through necessity than anything. And just having to, I guess I jumped back into what I knew, because I knew I was good at it. I knew how to do it. And it was the obvious option on a way that I could earn money and earn money quickly. Whereas where I'm at now in terms of my entrepreneur journey is that, I'm raising a new business from the ground up. And these things, they take time. They really take time. But it in that sense, I really just sort of went back to what I knew, and it was the right choice. But it was really freeing to me, like I said, when I went on maternity leave the second time, that I was able to just think that I don't know what's on the other side. I don't know what's on the other side. So why am I telling you this long-winded story about the birth of my children and my working around that? Well, when I came off of my maternity leave, or what would have been my year's maternity leave with my son in May 2022, I felt so uncomfortable. I didn't know where my place was or anything. I felt really uncomfortable. I'd never not worked. There had been multiple times that I'd worked multiple jobs, because while raising my first business up, it wasn't like I'm going to start a business at the age of 21 and off I go. No, I had, 9 to 5s in that time as well. I completed my master's degree. I had jobs all the way through alongside my own business, because it was, I was able to do it in like these little extra pockets of time. Then in 2015 was when I actually went and did it full time. So I had never been in a position since I was a kid where I didn't have a job or didn't have something to do. And come on, let's be honest, had two children to raise. And in May 2022, I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I had plenty to do. But in terms of work, it took me a really long time to really find my flow and find out who I was and what was I going to do. And originally my first thought was I will just be a stay-at-home parent, and I am okay with that. And I was okay with that. And, it's a massive part of me, who I am and my identity. Very much in the trenches of my children. They're 2 and 4 now. And yeah, it's really strange looking back, because I really, really didn't know where I was or where I was going and what everything looked like. Knowing that I was going to home educate the children, I knew there wasn't going to be an opportunity to do a career in like a 9 to 5 career sense. But also I've worked in 9 to 5 jobs, but so much of my life has been about being an entrepreneur. And so the whole period of time just felt really odd to me while I figured out what I was going to do. And that took, I would say, the best part of 2022, if I'm honest, to really figure out what I wanted to do. And I'd made some decisions, and I was already sort of growing my following, I guess, on Instagram, which was predominantly about like growing on the allotment, to be honest. And I'd done the big Instagram thing. I had a really big account in the first year of my daughter's life, and I shut it all down because it just wasn't me. And anyway, that's a complete side note. So I'd started this new account, and yeah, I just really enjoyed just being silly in my garden, to be honest. And that was something I really, really loved. And like I say, it took me the best part of 2022 to really figure out what I wanted to do. And then I got the opportunity to train as a yoga instructor to get my 200 hours. And having done yoga for like 15 years, and, you know, doing ballet and a lot of dance prior to that, I kind of finally felt like, maybe that is what I'm going to do now. And so I took my yoga course and I completed that in January of 2023. And then also late last year, I was able to complete my kids yoga, and like I've just got some ongoing continuing education. Like I'm a women's holistic health coach, which was part of my continuing education with the Yoga Alliance. And that combined with everything I do, like with slow and simple living, it just finally made sense. And it finally felt like, I have this thing, this external thing that is not just about me being a parent, and is something that is a hobby, a business, can make me money. And I don't think we should ever be ashamed of the things that make us money. I think so often, and I feel it with this podcast actually, because you probably noticed I started introducing some ads onto the show. And if you've never done a podcast, if you've never, you know, gone through the recording, the editing, you know, getting everything right, the uploading, the promotion, all of this stuff, it takes so much time and effort, and it's not unreasonable to want to be paid for your work. It's not. And I guess that leads me nicely into homemaking, because homemaking is something that I would consider my primary job. Being a homemaker, home educator, stay-at-home parent, that is my primary job. My business stuff is my secondary job. It's the thing that I do, I guess, slightly as a hobby, slightly as a way to bring in some extra income for our family. And it's the thing that I have to fit around the rest of my life. It's not a job in the strictest sense, because if you're comparing it to like a 9 to 5, that is, because my work can only happen when my other things are being taken care of, like if my husband's taking care of the children and things like that. And we very much have this sort of ebbing and flowing in our life, where I get to go off and do these things, and my husband is so supportive of everything that I do, and I'm so grateful, and I know he listens, so his head will be like swelling 10 times. I'd like to pretend he doesn't listen, but he does listen. He's very supportive of everything I do. And yeah, so it's not so much, I caught myself as I was saying it just now, like, not that he lets me go off and do it, but, you know, being practical, we don't have childcare for our children. And so when he's at work, I am taking care of our children. And when I need to work, he is taking care of our children. And so that's just the way it is. It is just the way it is. Our children are very young. And so we just try and ebb and flow around that and figure it out. But my primary role is a homemaker. And I guess for this episode, I know I'm like most of the way through this episode by now, but I really wanted to focus on homemaking, and I guess the value of homemaking, because, I talk about being an entrepreneur and, earning a little bit of extra money, and so much of that focus is still on productivity, which is the whole life that, we try and, I wouldn't say always try and move away from, but just try and have a better sort of understanding and balance within. And, it's taken me a lot of time since, May 2022, and I said I felt so uncomfortable with my role. And I think I felt uncomfortable with it because I felt like I wasn't contributing, and I felt like I wasn't contributing any productivity within our home. And that only came from me. That didn't come from anywhere else. And it took me a while to really work on that and see that there is great value in homemaking. So much value in that unpaid labour that traditionally and predominantly women give without a second glance. It is expected of us. And, it's certainly not the case across the board, but homemaking is something that has traditionally really been attributed to women. And it took me a while to really get comfortable with that title, and then get comfortable with, the unpaid labor part, and feeling like my work wasn't worthy. And that was completely me. It was completely me. Like I said, didn't come from anywhere else. My husband is like the most supportive person on the planet. And so he's always just been very kind and calm and understanding when I have not felt my best, or have not felt like I really know where I'm going. And he always listens to all my crazy ideas, like when I come running down on a Sunday and like, I'm going to create a seasonal living course. And he's like, okay, it sounds like a good idea. And then I disappear upstairs for like 8 hours and then come back down and I'm like, I've done it. Hyperfocus at its best. And yeah, so it took me a really long time to place value on homemaking myself. And it's not because I didn't think it was valuable, because I absolutely did. But it was just getting comfortable with that, because we live in a society where homemaking isn't valued. When you stay at home, your work is not necessarily valued as a woman, as a mother, and in my home as well. We're very much equals. There is no like one person does this, one person does that. We have a very, very shared and balanced perspective of our family life. We share our finances and have always shared our finances completely. It is a complete share of our finances. It is a complete share of our childcare responsibilities. It is a complete share of tasks that need to be done around the home, the cleaning, the washing, everything. It's not anybody's job. Nobody is like, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. It's just never a conversation in our home. It is all equal balance, equal power. If I leave washing in the washing machine for 3 days, my husband will refresh wash it and stick it in the tumble dryer and get it done, because it needs to be done. And I'm obviously not making any headway on it, so might as well give somebody else a crack of the whip. And so we've always lived that way. It's always been us since the day we moved in together. But it was really me who didn't put value on that aspect of myself. Running a business can be challenging, and we all know that finding the right tools to simplify your work is absolutely crucial. That's where Flowdesk comes in. Flowdesk is your one-stop solution for creating beautiful newsletters, effortless workflows, and serving your mailing list with ease. Managing your mailing list has never been this simple, saving you time and headaches. And here's the best part. As a listener of the Slow Living Collective podcast, you can enjoy a whopping 50% off for your first year. Just visit theslowlivingcollective.com/flowdesk to claim your exclusive offer and experience the convenience and beauty of Flowdesk for your business. Don't let the complexity of running a business overwhelm you. Choose Flowdesk and make email marketing one less thing to worry about. And it's funny because, I've mentioned about how homemaking generally has always been attributed to women, and it has. And I think now homemaking goes beyond traditional gender roles. And it's not just, I don't think homemaking is something that you only do if you don't go out to work. Like, homemaking is part of everyone's life. So whether you are home with your children, whether you work from home, whether you work outside the home, you can still be a homemaker, because you are still making a home and you're still indulging in all of those things. And so, the real significance in homemaking is providing that stability, the comfort and the nurture of your environment. But societal perception on homemaking really, really undervalues it. And because it's primarily something that traditionally a woman does, it is still very much in people's mind that there is no value to being a homemaker. There is no value to being a stay-at-home mother. We only have to look to the news where we see, mothers who stay home with their children through choice termed something like economically inactive. And, it's just continuing to undervalue that work. And certainly here in the UK as well, there's constant pressure to force women particularly back into the workplace as soon as possible after they've had their children, and never ever support the alternative, because the alternative of staying home doesn't make the tax money that those in power wish to receive, I guess. And as long as it continues to be under-supported in our society, the value of homemaking will always be undervalued. And it's ironic, really, because I think at home is where we do our most important work. And I think, I am pro having that time and space away from whatever it is to indulge in the things that I really enjoy, whether that be hobbies, whether that be my work. But my real work, my real important work takes place within the four walls of my home. And I think if we had a better value and prioritized homemaking more, I think that, there would be, it would escalate, and I hope that it would provide some sort of equal footing. But, realistically, if you think about it, homemakers bring such emotional value and economic value. To call people who are solely homemakers or solely stay-at-home parents economically inactive is so incredibly wrong for a start, because I think about myself in this situation. So my husband works his job, he works from home, like I mentioned, and I am predominantly the children's caregiver throughout that time, right? I am their sole caregiver while my husband is working. He cannot take care of them and do his job. And so that is predominantly my role. And my overall role in our home is taking care of them and taking care of our home. That is something I love to do as well. So to call me economically inactive is so far beyond the realms of correct, because, like I said, we are a very shared finance family. I know not everybody lives like that. Each to their own, but to me, it's the importance of being able to make decisions for our whole family all the time and not having to ask for money. That would just not sit comfortably with me, given all of the unpaid labour that I provide to our home. And I am predominantly the only person that spends money. I will be the one who does the shopping. I'm the one who thinks about, the kids need new coats or new shoes, or they need this or they need that. I sort through the secondhand clothes and see what's missing, and I take on that emotional toll. And I do often say, it's that sort of, the extra mental load of motherhood. And I think, there is so much that's running through our minds on a daily basis when it comes to our children, our relationships, our work, our homes, that we really should be placing so much more value on what we do. And I think women do, and I think we're just waiting for the rest of society to catch up with us, because I think we know, and I think more than ever, we are out here shouting about, look at all of this unpaid labour that I'm doing. I am absolutely worthy, and don't you dare tell me otherwise. Don't you dare try and push me back down. And so I think we are aware, and like I said, I think we're just waiting for the rest of society to catch up with us. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I hope you found inspiration in our shared journey towards a life that is mindful, deliberate, and rich with meaning. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is absolutely invaluable and it helps other people find the show as well. If you'd like to connect with me online, you can find me on Instagram at The Slow Living Collective. And if you're searching for a supportive community of like-minded individuals to exchange ideas with, don't forget to explore the Slow Living Collective membership at theslowlivingcollective.com. There you'll discover a wealth of resources, help, support, guidance, courses, ebooks, videos, and so much more to assist you on your journey towards a slower and more simpler life. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am truly grateful for your presence and I look forward to our next episode. Until then, may your days be filled with intention and purpose. Take care and I will see you in the next episode.